recording. Perfect. So just in case, I will record it using the other way. And record command. And how can I? Okay, how can I make it full view? Full view. Speaker. Okay, hi everyone. Sorry, I was having some issues. Now we are rolling. So it's basically an RPD designing and surveying revision. I'm not revising everything for the exam, but I am gonna do the survey and designing for a couple of cases so that you know the principles of designing of a couple of them. Okay, so let's start all together. Here we have, so there are two revisions, inshallah. There is a revision starting now, and hopefully by maybe half an hour or so, we're going to do the second revision. So here, this is example number 1. This is Kennedy class 1. So the first thing you need to establish, is it fulcrum case or a non-fulcrum case? In another meaning, is it a case where it have distal extension or it does not have a distal extension? So cases which have fulcrums are class 1, class 2, because both have distal extensions, and also cases of long span, class 4. This is not a long span, this is a short span, okay? But in these cases here, those two cases are both class 1 and class 2. So they are going to be both as fulcrum cases. So the first thing you decide, what are, number 1 in designing, so we need to establish, you will get the hang of this. I will go through it quickly. By doing the first case, the second case, you will completely understand it. Seeing it for the first time will make your life easier. So saddle, one saddle and one saddle. Both of them, I need to restore them. So I'm going to be drawing one saddle, and the mesh, and the mesh. So you can see here, I drew both of them. Then design number 2 is the guide planes. Class, what is the rule for guide planes? That for each edentulous space, you need to put on the surface next to the tooth a guide plane. In this case, here you have one tooth next to this because it's a distal extension. So you have 2 guide planes, one here and one here. The guide plane is a little piece of metal which goes on the side of the tooth. Then, so saddle, guide planes. Number 3, you need to provide rest. So rest provision goes as according to the case. The case is tooth and tissue or a fulcrum case. Then you have to, the rule goes away from. So it's on the tooth next to the edentulous space, but away from. So in this case, we are going to put it in this tooth and in this tooth because it's the tooth next to the edentulous space. صح? So away from would be the mesial side in this case, 1 and 2. So saddle, guide planes, rests, and in this case, because it's tooth and tissue supported, it's away from. Then number 4 is retainers. Retainers are direct and indirect. Let's start by the first one, which is direct. So this is a distal end. This is a distal end. So distal end, then the tooth next to the distal ends on each side needs to receive a clasp. You need minimum 1 clasp for each side. That's the minimum. You can add more. So for any case, you need 1 clasp for each side. So since this is a distal end, you need a special class, which is stress breaking class, which is RPI, RPA, or a combination class, one of those three. Tamam? So we have, let's say I will put an RPI on both sides. So this is my I bar, and this is my I bar. Before I put them, I need to confirm. This is my I bar, and this is my I bar. Before I put them, I need to confirm that I have adequate sulcus depth and I don't have a frenum. As you can see, there is no frenum here. There is a frenum here, so it's far away from it, so it's okay, and the sulcus depth is fine. So I can safely put an I bar. Then, so saddle, guide plane, rest, my direct retainer, indirect retainer. Since it's a fulcrum case, then we will put a indirect retainer. Indirect retainer is the usually rest that you put away and perpendicular from the fulcrum. So indirect retainer, we put it in one of three cases only: class 1, class 2, and long span class 4. This is a class 1, so definitely needs an indirect retainer. So in this case, I need first to draw my fulcrum in order to locate the position of the indirect retainer. Where do you put the fulcrum? I already told you there is a rest here and a rest here. These are, so you need to find the distal rest. There is no other rests. The most distal rest. So these are the only and the most distal rest. So I make an imaginary line across this fulcrum line. And from there, I determine where is the furthest tooth perpendicular to it. In this case, they are all 4 incisors, weak teeth. So the strongest decent teeth coming next are the canines. So I will need, for each distal extension, I will need 1 indirect retainer. So 1 indirect retainer here for this side and 1 indirect retainer on this side. Since it's a canine, the actual rest that goes for it, we call it a cingulum rest. The one here, again, cingulum rest, and this is for a premolar, it's an occlusal rest. Tamam? So here I made my design. Again, I will keep repeating because, so saddle, guide plane, rest, primary rest, direct retainer I bars, and indirect retainer. The only thing remaining now is the connectors, major connectors. So I will, in this case, it's a lower. This is the way you have to think. Lower cast, the most preferable major connector is what? Is a lingual bar. So I need to measure where? From here until there, which is from the gingival margin to the fold of the tongue, lingual sulcus. Is it 7 millimeter? If it is 7 millimeter, then yes, it's good for a lingual bar. So I have to draw my lingual bar, which goes like this, here, and here, and here, as a bar. Then simply anything not connected like this, I connected, you connect all the remaining structure with minor connectors, which are small elements of metal. Now this is the final design. Minor connector, and the same minor connector. Rest as indirect retainer, RPI system, and major connector and mesh. Once I am done with my design, we will put it on the surveyor. So let's put it on the surveyor. Before I put it on the surveyor, let's do all the designing for all the casts, and you will get the hint of designing. Then we can put 1 or 2 for surveying. Let's keep going. Then the next one is class 2. Class 2, mod 1. Class 2, distal extension, mod 1. Okay, this gets a little bit interesting. Okay, so the first thing in designing is the saddle. How many restorative saddle? 1, I put the mesh here, and 2, I draw the mesh here. Then, what is the next thing? Guide plates. So how many guide plates do I require in this case? The rule goes, yes, the rule goes as next to each edentulous space, the surface, you need to bound it by a guide plane. So here next to it, we have one tooth, one surface, which is here, distal to this tooth. And then here, this is 2 spaces. So I'm going to draw 1 here and 1 here. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 guide planes. Again, 1, 2, 3 guide planes. Come on. Then if I have another space here, so I will add again 4, 5, and so on. So again, saddle, guide planes. Next is support. Support goes by rests. So in this case, I have 2 sides of very different scenarios. This side is the same like the previous case, which is a distal extension. So the rule is I need to put the rest away from, so I need to put it on the mesial side of the tooth. And since it's a premolar, we call it an occlusal rest. Then on this side, I have a tooth bonded space. So the rule is I need to put the rest next to. So here, mesial occlusal rest, mesial occlusal rest. Then, so saddle, guide plates, rest, rest, rest. Then, again in design, once you do it a couple of times, you get the hitch of this. Then, from here, the next thing is direct retention. So the first in retention is direct retainer, the second is indirect. Let's start with direct retainer. On this side, it's exactly like the previous one. It's distal extension. You need one of the 3 clasps, either RPA, RPI, or a combination clasp. So here, I will, again, just for simplicity, I will put an I bar. You can see I drew an I bar coming as such, I bar. Then on this side, it is a tooth bonded situation, So I have a choice of any class. Since this is a premolar, so an easy clasp, which is a gentle clasp and an aesthetic clasp, let's put an I bar. Now I can stop here and no one will tell me I am wrong, because if I'm going to put a clasp here, I have already fulfilled the requirement that minimum requirement is 1 clasp for each side. I can be done. But let's say I want to add more. That's fine. We add 1 more. Let's put 1 clasp on this tooth. This is a molar, which is next to it a tooth which is missing. So what happens? You can even see it. It's mesially tipped. When it tips mesially, okay, you will find that there is no undercuts except here on the lingual side of it. But so you have any option. So because of this scenario, it's always better to put a ring clasp. But let's say I am not sure, I am new in designing. I saw a molar and it's a strong situation, so I can put a C clasp. So let's, for hypothetical reason, put a C clasp, but later you will see in the surveying that I cannot see a C clasp and I have to put it as a ring clasp. But I will show it to you. So again, in design, this is distal extension and this is a bonded area. Saddle, saddle, guide plane, guide plane, guide plane. Mesial rest, bonded rests here. And then we finish from the support, retention, 1 class I bar, RPI, 1 I bar, C class. Then next to this is the indirect retainer. And we need an indirect retainer in this case because it's a distal extension from one side. It's class 2 require, it's a fulcrum case. So how to draw the fulcrum? It's from the 2 distal rest. So this is the first distal rest on this side, and this is the second distal rest. I will put an imaginary line like that, and then the most furthest tooth in this situation is this lateral. It's a weak tooth. The next to it, it be a canine. So I will put a cingulum rest because it's a canine on the tooth, and this is my indirect retainer. What comes after that, it's the lingual or the major connector. If the space here looks very small, less than 7 millimeters, so what should I put instead? We will put a lingual plate, the second most common. So I will draw my lingual plate, and then I will draw all of them. So this is my lingual plate. And then I will just connect anything with a minor connector, and I'm done with my design. So this is the design. Okay, then let's go with the third situation, which is a class 3. Class 3 is tooth bonded restoration. Okay, so كلهم mandible. للأسف, I'm very sorry, all of them are mandible. So here, let's take, for example, the situation. This is class 3, div 1. Class 3, div 1. So it's not a fulcrum case. There is no distal extension and it's no long span, class 4. So same principle. I am restoring both saddles. So the first thing I am going to draw here is a small saddle, and here a small saddle. And then from here, I am going to, after the saddle, I need to determine how many guide planes I need to establish. Since the rule goes, each saddle, you need to bond it with each, you need to put on the surface next to it a guide plane. So in this case, how many guide planes? I need 4. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. You're getting the hang of this. Then we have, so saddle, guide planes, okay? And then now I need to put rest. The rule on this side is the same as that side because both of them are tooth supported. The rule goes that I need to put the rest next to the guide. So here distal, next to here mesial, next to here mesial, distal, here mesial. Okay, saddle, guide planes, rest, 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 rest. Then retention. I need minimum 1 for each side. More is okay, minimum 1 on each side. So I can put, let's say, this, I can put any class. So maybe, for example, here C class, and maybe here an I bar because it's a premolar. But you can see here there is a frenum. It's hitting on it. So in this side, I cannot put an I bar. So either I put another C class, or I ignore placing any class because already on this side there is a class. On the other side, there is no frenum. So I can put I bar here, and I can put, for example, embrasure or C class. Pick wherever you want. It doesn't matter. Ring, whatever. So I did the retention with direct retainer. Now I need to put indirect retainer. Does this case needs an indirect retainer? No, because it's a non-fulcrum case. It's not a class 1. It's not a class 2. It's not a long span, class 4. So I need to skip this step, and I need to jump to major connector. This is lower major connector. I need to measure the space. It's very small space, and I can see we have some perio issue, so it would be much safer to plate a plate, lingual plate, and we are done with the design. Okay, now let's go to the second fun, which is surveying. Tamam? So I might need your help. So it's okay, when I'll tell you in a minute. So it's better to understand the principle of designing in the beginning with a class 3. So the first thing I need to establish is to put this is what many people don't know how to use. It's called the surveyor, okay? You control this for me, make sure that everyone is seeing. I will be doing this side, okay? So I will, this side move. That's the only part that move. Upside, up, down, okay? I will take it a little bit backwards so you can see so I will attach this component, which looks like this. It's only a piece of metal which is straight. I will attach it, it's called the analysis rod, and I will attach it to the surveyor and I will lock it to it. This is an adjustable table. You open it from this side, so it moves in any direction. And then you need to attach to it from the top here, the cast. So you open it to put the cast, which is this cast, for example, you put it in and you lock it. Tamam? Then it's wobbly because I did not lock this. So now we did design. You put the design on and it's in red color and you put it on the surveyor. So once I put it on the surveyor, I need to establish what is my starting point. My starting point should be zero plane, means the occlusal plane and not the bottom of your cast. The occlusal plane has to be parallel to the table, to this. The occlusal plane is perpendicular to this, but it's much easier to say it and do it as occlusal plane is parallel to this. It's the same. It's just saying it in a different way. So I get my eyes downward and I look and I keep tilting the cast until I see that the occlusal plane is parallel. And once it's parallel, I lock it. And I look at all sides. If on the other side it's not, I keep getting it until parallel. If you want, you can put anything on top of the occlusal plane and keep moving it until this surface is parallel to this. That's a much easier way of doing it. So I can tell you that this is parallel. I don't know if it's clear in the camera. It is to a great extent, this is parallel to this. Tamam? So this is, we call it the zero tilt. This is number 1 stage of surveying. I put it on the surveyor this way, and then I analyze. We have to start analyzing. The first thing we need to analyze, there are 2 main things we are gonna analyze. So zero tilt, proximal plate, and undercut for clasp. Again, zero tilt, proximal plate, and undercut of the cast. Let's zero tilt, we did it. Undercut, proximal for the guide planes. So we know now that here and here are the areas for the guide planes. So just for you to see, if I put it at zero plane this way, and I move the cast and I go this way, you can see that there is a little bit of an undercut proximally. And here the undercut is very small. So let's have a look at the surveyor. getting it closer. So here you can see this area here is the undercut. And I'm not moving this at all. I'm just moving the cast to move in order to analyze the proximal undercuts. So there is another undercut here. Is it clear in the camera? Is it? Okay. So again, there is a little form triangle here in this area. This is what we call an undercut, proximal undercut. Tamam? And here, when I move the cast to evaluate the other tooth, you can see again also I have an undercut, but this case, it is much bigger. Tamam? Let's keep going and examine. We have 4 guide planes in this case. Let's examine the other 2. And in this case, you can see that I have a very tiny undercut in this area. كده ما ظاهر؟ No, it's very clear. This, you can see that there is a very small undercut, and I'm gonna move it to the other side, to the other guide plane. And you can see here that there is a very small undercut as well. Now, on this side, the 2 undercuts are equal, and they are small, and on this side, next to the premolar, the undercut is very big, and next to the molar, the undercut is actually very big too. So if I make a change, look carefully what happened. I'm gonna get it closer. Look carefully. That tilt, if I do it right and left, look, this is right, and this is left. There is absolutely no change in my proximal undercut. Look again. This is right, and this is left. There is absolutely no change in the amount of the undercut. The change in undercut will only happen proximally if I do it. Look carefully, I'll put it back to 0. If I put it, look, I'm gonna go forward. Look. Now, it completely eliminated the undercut here. And look at the undercut on the molar side. It's ridiculously massive. لحظة. Sorry, it's a little bit wobbly with the computer. I'm struggling, but I'm gonna get it closer. You can see how massive is the undercut on under the proximal of the molar. So this is only will happen proximally when I do, and you can see now, look, when I'm doing an anterior, posterior tilt. Observe the premolar undercut. Look, this is an anterior tilt, and look, I'm going to posterior tilt. You can see that the undercut completely changed. So, second. So, I need to make all the undercuts equal. So this undercut here is absolutely at 0. They were kind of as equal as possible. So I need to keep shift forward, backward until they are equal. In my opinion, it was not very bad, or maybe a little tilt as such. And now they are equal, equalish. Yes, they are equal. I finish from that. I will not make any anterior posterior change. Then I will lift the cast or move it, rotate it to look proximally on the sides. In this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start to do my drawing because it's much easier to see. So I am going to draw here a black line. Black line. Black line. So I'm just moving the surveyor to draw for me exactly the survey line. I'm not doing anything. It's a pencil piece, attach it to the surveyor. It's called the graphite or carbon stylus, and it's drawing for me the survey. And you can see here that on this tooth, I have decided I want an eye bar. So it should extend up to here, eye bar. So as you can see, the eye bar tip is below the survey line. So I will be happy to consider that this is tick. I am happy with, and I'm not going to change anything on this. This one here, I decided it is a C class. So it's completely above the survey line. The survey line is very low. The black one is the survey line. So it will not work. Either I make a dimple here or I make a little bit of change. The change in the tilt will be this time in the right, left side. Otherwise, as you can see, I have a big undercut on the same tooth where linguomesially. So a very easy fix is I just change the class that goes as a ring class because all molar, they tilt proximally, and all what I need to do is to get the class going like that, and on the lingual side, it goes and engage the undercut on this side. Ring class. So once I am done with all of these, then I decide that this, so now I approved this class. It was very favorable to the survey line. For this one, I changed the class. I am happy with the ring class instead of a C class. On this side, it's the same. No, at this side, oh, I didn't survey it on this side. Again, very low survey line, not favorable, but I have the exact same presentation. I have a undercut. You will find always with the lower molar, they tilt mesially and the undercut is mesiolingually. So you just change it to a C ring class and it will work perfectly. So here as well, change it to C, to ring class, and I am happy with the design on this side. Then it means that at this tilt, my design is confirmed, only modified by two simple modifications, which are two ring class, and there is no addition of composite, there is no alteration of the survey line. This way, I can lock my survey and tilt, which is the path of insertion, and I can do my tripoding, which goes as making lines all around at the same tilt. So one line here, one line here, and one line here. You can make as many lines. 3 are enough as long as they are far from each other. What does this mean? It means if I remove this, I can simply align it to 1 and keep going around, align, lock, go align. It's aligned, and keep going and keep aligning, align. Once they're all aligned, I'm back to my tilt, and that's how you save the tilt. Huh? Now, this is done. This is very, very easy. It's a class 1. We can do it very quickly. It's the same principle. Number 1, put it at 0 plane, which is put this on top. Make sure this is parallel to the to the floor of the table. That's actually parallel enough. So I lock it at that. Then number 2, you assess, sorry, that's parallel. Then you assess proximal guide planes. Here you have 0 undercut. On this side you have 0 undercut. The space is on the top, not the bottom. So there is no undercut. Then, so I am happy at 0 tilt. The proximals are okay. Now I check the side to side, which is, in this case, it's a class 1. I gave it RPI on both sides. I will survey. 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 And you can see that here, your survey line, the survey line is high up above the I-bar. So it's good on this side. Let's go on the other side. You can see it's high up. If it was low, very low, let's say that my survey line was the bottom one. So what should I do? One of the easiest fixes is just add composite. It will raise my survey line. This way, I don't need to change anything and I'm done surveying. That's the whole point of doing surveying. I think now it's much easier and you can understand. This is 2 examples of surveying. In the next group, I will do class 4 and class 3. Thank you very much. End meeting for